On October 16, 2016, an initiative started by a single fan translator would change the dynamic of the global BTS fandom. No longer would Korean fans, or K-fans, feel like a distant, unknowable entity to international fans, or I-fans. For perhaps the first time in the history of K-pop fandom, both Korean and international fans would feel like they were playing on the same team. This is the story of the Peachisoda letter exchanges. A quick disclaimer before we begin. The majority of this video was written from my own memory. Some parts of it might be a bit biased or warped because of the years that have since passed, so keep that in mind as we go. Regardless, I did my best to tell this story as accurately as possible, but I'm not perfect. If I make any mistakes or forget about something, please feel free to write it in the comments. So, with that out of the way, let's begin! Peachisoda was a BTS fan translator who was active from around 2016 to 2018. She was by far the most popular and well-known translator in the fandom at her peak, partially because of the letter exchange I'm going to talk about in this video, but also because she subbed a lot of content really quickly and accurately. She also translated a lot of posts from Korean BTS fan communities, which no one else was doing at the time. This helped a lot of fans understand what was going on in the K-ARMY world, which hadn't been possible for most I-ARMY before this. Peachisoda had her own blog where she posted all of her translations and content. And for anyone who was an ARMY back then, the screenshots I'm showing you right now are probably giving you a blast from the past because every single ARMY used this website for translations back then. It was pretty much impossible to avoid. But before we can get into the main reason I wanted to make this video, the letter exchanges, we're going to need to understand the context and climate of the BTS fandom at that time. It goes without saying, but the fandom in 2016 was radically different from what it is today. One extremely important piece of context for understanding these letter exchanges is that in pretty much every K-pop fandom there was, and still is to an extent, a stark division between Korean fans and all other fans. This bred antagonism between the two sides, with Korean fans derisively referring to international fans as I-cockroaches, because in their view, I-fans didn't respect unwritten Korean fandom rules, spread news that should be kept quiet too loudly, and didn't loyally support their idols enough, usually financially. On the flip side, I-fans often viewed K-fans as xenophobic, obsessed with owning their idols, a la Daesangs, and being just overall rude. You can kinda still see the same sentiment among I-fans in the comments people leave about Korean netizens to this day, even though both of these views generalize incredibly large groups of diverse people based on only their most toxic vocal minority, despite all of these traits existing in all parts of the fandom to some extent. Quick note here, although I-fan sounds like this all-encompassing term for literally everywhere outside of Korea, this is not really how I experience people in K-pop fandom using the term. I was mostly involved in the more Western, English-speaking part of the international K-pop fandom, where Japanese, Chinese, and Southeast Asian fans got their own special labels, such as J-fan, C-fan, and, well, Southeast Asian fan respectively. This is because these areas of the fandom felt extremely separate from the rest of the I-fandom. They had their own special fan cultures and communities surrounding K-pop, largely due to the fact that they are much closer geographically to Korea than anywhere else. K-pop companies would release things in Chinese, Japanese, etc., and they would actually tour those countries more frequently than anywhere else. So when I say I-fan in this video, I'm generally not including J-fans, C-fans, or Southeast Asian fans, though I'm sure a few might have participated. Who is included in the term I-fan is actually a very complicated topic and changes based on who you ask. But I don't want to spend too long on this tangent, so this will suffice for now. The second thing to understand about the 2016 BTS fandom is that the Korean BTS fandom was much, much smaller than it is today. Today, BTS gets a perfect all-kill on the Korean charts just by breathing, but back then, ARMY would get excited if BTS managed to chart in the top 20 on Melon, the main Korean streaming service, for longer than a week. Back in those days, charting number 1 or even in the top 10 on an album's release day was not a guarantee. In contrast, the global fandom was comparatively huge and actually drove the majority of BTS's album sales. Compared to today, of course, the global fandom was minuscule. I mean, we could barely chart in the Billboard Album 200. But back in 2015-2016, this was still a huge anomaly in K-pop. Only groups like Big Bang and 21 or breakout stars like psy charted on Billboard. Anyone else doing so was unheard of. In fact, this was so unusual at the time that BTS was accused of album Sajaegi multiple times from 2015 to 2017. Sajaegi refers to unethically and/or illegally boosting an artist's chart ranking. For example, this might include a music label purchasing tens of thousands of their own artist's album to increase their chart position. These Sajaegi rumors were huge at the time. The comments section of the news reports about BTS's album sales were filled with Sajaegi accusations, and the term Sajaegi boys often trended on Korean search engines whenever these rumors arose. These accusations only died down once international ARMY started posting about their gigantic group order receipts on Korean message boards. For example, this Russian ARMY post, as well as K-ARMY explaining how offline fan sign sales factored into the chart. Interestingly, Peachisoda also translated a K-ARMY clarification post about how BTS's sales couldn't be Sajaegi on her blog. All of these claims are hilarious when you remember the kind of sales BTS generate today. All of this over 47,000 album sales in 1 week? Try several million in one day. But back then, this was incredibly serious business. At this time, Korean fans seemed to generally be aware that the international fandom was much larger than the Korean fandom, as indicated in some letters from K-fans, and that I-fans were the reason that BTS hadn't disbanded already. From their debut up until around 2016-2017-ish, BTS had an extremely loyal core following of K-fans. But that small core wouldn't have been able to keep BTS or Big Hit financially afloat on its own. The comparatively large and dedicated I-fandom allowed them to keep going until they had their breakout hit and first music show win with I Need You, and started amassing a sizable Korean following from then on. That being said, around this time, the international fandom was not focused on international awards or Billboard charts like they are today. The I-fandom's focus was on helping BTS become well-known in their own country. In those days, I-fans were constantly checking that all of their purchases, streams, and votes would count towards Korean charts. I remember seeing so many guides from this time period about how to do all of these things properly. I mean, I definitely use them. Anyone else out there borrow an internet friend's Korean or Japanese phone number to sign up for Melanin Stream? 'Cause I sure did. Don't even get me started on those fan cafe questions you had to answer to get into BTS's cafe, and you had to do it in full Korean. I still did it though, just a small flex. Anyway, because of all this, I-ARMY were somewhat desperate to connect with K-ARMY. One reason for this was to coordinate streaming plans and get charting advice, since K-ARMY would know much better than I-ARMY about how the Korean charts work. Since all this was happening in late 2016, I-ARMY also wanted to connect with K-ARMY because of the upcoming year-end award shows, where it looked like BTS might actually have a chance at winning one of the Daesangs, aka the grand prize, and wanted to get tips from K-ARMY on the best way to do this.
Spoiler alert, BTS did win their first ever Daesang for The Most Beautiful Moment in Life Young Forever that very November.
Additionally, since Peachisoda had been translating posts from Korean fan communities, I-ARMY were aware of all the hate K-ARMY regularly got from other Korean fandoms, like the Sajaegi stuff I just talked about. There's a lot more fandom incidents K-ARMY had to deal with, but I won't get too deep into those here. For that reason, some I-ARMY wanted to send letters cheering on and supporting K-ARMY for continuing to support the boys despite all the pushback they constantly faced. This brings us to the letter exchange itself. As I mentioned, Peachisoda is probably most well known for conducting the letter exchange between I-ARMY and K-ARMY, As I said in the intro, on October 16th, 2016, she posted the following to her blog. The post explains that I-ARMY could leave the messages they wanted to send to K-ARMY in the comments, and the top 10 most upvoted comments would be translated to Korean and posted in the BTS fan community on the Korean message board Pan. About 4 days later, on October 23, 2016, Peachisoda posted K-ARMY's responses to the I-ARMY letters on her blog. According to a December 2017 Billboard interview about fandom translators, Peachisoda says she did this letter exchange about 4 or 5 times total over a span of about a year and a half, which sounds about right according to my memory. Unfortunately, some of these exchanges have been lost to the sands of time, partly due to Peachisoda moving to a new blog and deleting the old one at one point. Because a lot of these letters from I-ARMY were written in the comments, deleting the original blog meant that the comments were lost as they didn't transfer over to the new blog. Thankfully, I did find some screenshots of the I-ARMY comments someone saved on a K-pop amino post from the very first letter exchange. I honestly never thought it'd get to the point where I'd be thankful for a K-pop amino post, but here we are. So without further ado, let's read some of the comments included in this first exchange. First, I'll read a few of the letters written by I-ARMY to K-ARMY. Teamwork makes the dream work. Namjoon once tweeted this, and it's true. I believe if I-ARMY and K-ARMYs unite, we can create better opportunities for both BTS and ourselves as fans. Even though many of us are unable to talk to them, I would like to thank you guys for watching over the boys and asking them if they are fine when they're hurt or tired. I know K-ARMYs put in a lot of effort to allow BTS to gain domestic recognition by streaming on music sites and such, and we are very thankful towards everyone's efforts. Between I-ARMYs and K-ARMYs, there may be a lot of effort put behind supporting BTS that each other may not know of, such as the Sajaegi case. Thank you for defending the boys when we were unable to. I-ARMYs will work hard to allow the boys to rank on international charts and such. Even though we all speak different languages, we are united because of BTS. Let's work hard together. There will always be haters and such, but as long as we stand together, we will be able to overcome any challenges. Just as BTS said in 2-3, still there will be better days. Erase those sad memories. Let's take each other's hands and laugh. I believe if we all unite as a fandom, we can have better days. I hope we can all go hand in hand towards a brighter future together. I-ARMYs, K-ARMYs, and Bangtan. K-ARMYs, thank you for being with us and with Bangtan. We could never achieve these dreams without you. Thank you for persisting in your love and support for BTS, so much so that even when haters try to bring you guys and BTS down, you never give up, always bringing up receipts and evidence to shut them out. We I-ARMYs try to do whatever we can to support BTS too, but honestly the reason why BTS has become so big is because of you. Thank you for always uploading stuff on social media for us I-ARMYs. We can't see the boys in person, so we really appreciate all your efforts in uploading their beautiful smiles and photos. Thank you for staying up late to stream hard on Melon, Naver, and YouTube. Thank you for supporting BTS at their concerts and performances, even when you are busy. You guys have worked so hard. We I-ARMYs want to do our best to support you guys in BTS too, so let us know how we can help. After all, we are one big family, walking down this flowery path together. With our blood, sweat, and tears, this path might be difficult, but let's keep going. It'll be worth it in the end. Let's continue to stay united and do whatever that we can to protect and fight for one another too. Teamwork makes the dream work. I'm so glad we are able to exist together in the same time and space even when we are miles apart. Social media makes everything so much better. Love you, K-ARMYs. I hope we'll get closer too. And here are a few of the responses to these letters from K-ARMY. Quick note, Ippi is a cute Korean nickname for ARMY derived from Jimin saying the Korean word for pretty with a Busan accent. K-ARMYs and I-ARMYs, let us both become a proud fan to BTS. These days I'm really grateful to international ARMYs. Although we're from different countries, nationalities, culture, age, and we don't know each other very well and live far apart, I just realized again that we're all walking the same path with the same intentions for a group we all love. I wish we could all hold hands together and stay together forever in this most beautiful moment in life. I think where we live, our age, and things like that don't matter. I believe that our love for BTS is the chain that connects armies around the world. Though our nationality, age, and ideas might be different, I'm sure our love for BTS is the same. Even Korean armies are grateful to international armies. I think the efforts made by international armies also made it possible for BTS to enter their name in the international charts. I hope you all know that Korean armies love and care a lot about international armies too. Let's keep flying higher and higher together with BTS, who will have more better days. I was prejudiced against all international fans, but my heart feels so warm and I feel like I should love them more. We're fans who don't speak the same language or live in the same country, but our love and support for someone remains unchanged wherever we are. OP, thanks, because I think this changed many things for me. Thank you for loving BTS even when you all live far. Thanks, and I will love you and cherish you guys more. This last comment reinforces the point I made earlier, that the relationship between I-fans and K-fans in the K-pop fandom was quite antagonistic, to put it lightly. But now I want to talk about my own personal experience in the fandom at the time, as well as why this even matters. From about 2015 to 2018, I was the deepest into the ARMY fandom. I was extremely, perhaps unhealthily, online, and I was incredibly invested and up to date on literally everything happening in the BTS fandom during those years. This was a lot easier to do back in the day because the fandom was smaller, but still, I was in deep. Honestly, far too much of my brain space is taken up by memories of various fan wars that happened during this period. I have since gone outside and do not do this anymore. So when these letter exchanges happened, I remember finding it super heartwarming and wholesome. It really made us feel like one united fandom rather than two separate ones. This was in contrast to the fact that in pretty much every other K-pop fandom, there was a stark dividing line between Korean fans and all other fans. Peachisoda's letter exchanges completely changed the hostile I-fan, K-fan dynamic for the next few years, at least in the BTS fandom. I remember K-fans giving I-fans the nickname I-lovelies, and I-fans giving K-fans the nickname K-diamonds around this time. This just represents how different the vibe of the BTS fandom was when these letter exchanges were happening, compared to every other international fandom being called I-cockroaches by their Korean counterparts. Unfortunately, I feel like K-ARMY and I-ARMY have grown increasingly more distant since these letter exchanges ended, and at this point, we're back to square one. I also think these letter exchanges just go to show, once again, how important fan translators are, especially in a transcultural fandom like the BTS ARMY. Without someone there to bridge the linguistic and cultural gap, misunderstandings and distrust can grow until the fandom divides are too deep to heal. This was honestly a magical period to be an ARMY, and I hope one day it might be able to return to some extent. There was a real sense of camaraderie with people who lived on the other side of the world, who didn't even speak the same language as you. It was beautiful. But unfortunately, I think the BTS fandom might have grown too big for this to ever be able to happen again, especially when there are some I-ARMY who think that the Korean fandom isn't important anymore. This is probably because I-fans more broadly seem more focused on getting BTS international awards and recognition nowadays, and K-fans aren't seen as helpful for achieving those goals. There isn't that same desire to connect with Korean fans like there once was, which is a shame. We could probably learn a lot from Korean fans, and it's sad to think of what we might be missing because of it. Unfortunately, Peachisoda is no longer around. Her Twitter hasn't been updated in over 3 years, and I couldn't find any other way to reach out to ask her or verify some of the things I've said in this video. Honestly, part of her downfall might have been all the ads and short links she used to monetize her translations. Now, don't get me wrong, I am all for fan translators making money from all the hard work they do. I don't mind ads here and there or a donation button, but Peachisoda's blog, at a certain point, she kept adding more ads and the ads made that site almost unusable. And some ads looked super sus, like they might infect your computer with malware if you made one wrong click. To Peachy's credit, she did try to fix this at one point by contacting the ad service she used, but then her original blog was deleted and even more sus ads started popping up. To be honest, I don't clearly remember the exact timeline of when the ads were manageable versus awful, but case in point, my computer won't even let me navigate to the version of her blog that supposedly still exists because of all the security risk pop-ups from my browser. If you were around during this time, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Additionally, if you go back through Peachy's Twitter, it seems like there may have also been some drama regarding her scamming a group order of BTS merch. I can't say if this is true or not, but the Twitter replies don't seem happy. Her last tweet before disappearing also has to do with group orders, with a lot of angry replies saying they still never received their items. To her credit, I did order something using one of her group orders once. I think it was the 4th term army membership kit, and I did in fact receive it, but Peachy ran so many other group orders before she disappeared that maybe she started scamming later. I have no way of knowing. It certainly isn't a good look to disappear right after a bunch of people claim you're scamming them, though. Now, I don't know if any of these were the reason Peachisoda stopped translating, if there was something else that happened, or if she just naturally moved on from the fandom. Regardless, when she stopped posting, it really did feel like the end of an era. Ignoring the potential scamming, which is a big yikes if true, I do think she did a lot of good for the BTS fandom in other areas. She was an integral part of the early BTS fandom, and looking back on this whole time period makes me feel really happy and nostalgic, but maybe that's just the rose-tinted glasses. If you're interested in more BTS fandom history, I made a video on the Jimin shirt controversy from October 2018. I've also made a few other analytical videos on BTS, so check those out if you're interested. Other than that, thanks for watching, bye!